Hello and welcome back inside the Park for May for podcast number 771. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
A.K.A. Negative Camber. Let me try that in English. It's called Negative Camber is my nom de plume. Anyway, you know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do. Tonight, for your kind consideration, we're going to talk about the FIA. Yes, we are. But before doing that, I have to introduce my guests tonight, my co-host. You know her, you love her, all the way on the right coast of our nation's capital. She's nestled in there like a deer tick, man. She's right in the DC area playing her skills. It's the lovely, the redoubtable Grace, how you doing?
I don't even know what that means, but I'm good. I'm enjoying the 60-degree weather we have today until it's 30 degrees tomorrow. So.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
Good times.
I got one more reprieve.
Oh, wait, Paul, we haven't introduced you.
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charsley, the International.
It's Paul Charsley. Paul, how you doing?
All right.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Hey, Paul.
Didn't get big intro. You started having a conversation, you know.
I know.
So when I'm listening to the podcast, I'm not in the podcast itself. I'm like shouting at you guys. So I just feel the need to interrupt.
You're like, poppycock. That's not right. I know how you are.
That's not a blue cheese.
Right. Oh my! You know, Paul, I got to tell you, I was putting together my Todd's No Shit headlines segment for Alvin's Cats. I saw a headline which I will read that was implicating a driver did something, and I could swear that the picture they used was a picture of your car, and it wasn't a driver for the Aston Martin number 23.
Really?
And I thought, that's offensive.
It's hard to mistake our car, so it probably was, huh?
Yeah. So I was like, lawsuit.
Gotcha.
There you go. Get Lawrence Stroll on that one.
Yeah.
But you won't.
Me and Lawrence are going to have our regular meetings Thursday morning. Donuts and Lawrence.
Is that the one where he stands up in front of you and sticks his hand down and adjusts his junk like he did to Claire Williams? Or?
Yeah, but he's usually wearing his pajamas, which gets really scary.
No, yeah, that is scary. Go ahead, Chris.
But you won't know who it is until the end of the show. So an hour and a half from now, you'll get to find out who you should be mad at.
Right. Well, speaking of Grace, we do have a lot to cover. I'm glad you prompted me. You know, Grace, you're like the human cattle prod. Go! Get up
I am not. I'm usually the one that you're like, enough cheese talk, Grace. Let's go. Nobody cares about what you watched on TV. Let's go.
Right. No more basketball.
Hey,
speaking of, Paul Charsley shamed me into watching this, and I'm so glad he did. And I'm sure Grace, you and Flip watched it, but I had not watched that Michael Jordan Last Dance. It was terrific.
Yes,
it was great, and I thought, Paul, and it was great because Paul and I were texting back and forth a little bit. It was such an interesting insight to the mindset of a champion like that and what it took him personally to get motivated to continue to win titles and to be the best of the best, you know, and everything he had to make a personal challenge, a personal war, a personal fight, you know? And I thought that is so interesting. And they could have been what to us may have been, just some offhanded comment they made. What's the big deal? Let it go. No, he seized on that and made that his absolute war, you know, and that's what he needed to personally motivate him season in, season out. And I thought it was just such an intriguing thing. And yeah, it was amazing. I really enjoyed it, Paul. So
it was good. I mean, as I said, about a champion, it was about obviously Michael Jordan, you know, but there's a lot of champions we've seen in racing that do things similar, you know, where they find their own little personal vendettas against people to drive them to excellence, and then they find ways of pulling the people around them to lift their game to ultimately a selfish reward, which is I want to win and I need everyone here to make myself a winner, so I need to bring you up to a level that's going to make that happen. And
I wonder if Lewis Hamilton has any motivation in this season for, you know, any vendettas or.
No, I think he's pretty chill. Yeah,
he's probably pretty chill.
He's been hanging out in the canyons and yodeling.
Although Bottas might have some Scottie Pippen vibes, who knows?
He probably does. I like Scottie Pippen. So when back in those days, man, I just thought Michael was awesome. He was incredible. But it was really that combination. Scottie Pippen, I thought, was so overlooked, and what a brilliant player he was.
Yeah, but I mean, Jordan just got the team around him that enabled him to be what he was. I didn't even realize how much basketball Master watched back then, because I knew like every single player throughout that series. I'm like, I don't know any players nowadays, but back then that was a pretty special time, I think. Yeah.
It's the same thing. I was going to, that's Kevin McHale, Yeah. I forgot all about Kevin McHale, but he's a great player, Yeah. And so it was, and then, all those guys, Isaiah and all those guys were, I was surprised. I watched a lot more basketball back then than I do now. I don't watch any now, but yeah. It's amazing. Anyway, welcome to the NBA podcast. Right, we're
if you want to talk about modern basketball, we could do that too. I mean,
I don't.
Harden's its own can of worms. So
I don't care. Yeah, I'm not interested. If it doesn't have four wheels on it, I don't.
Just as salty today as they were back then.
Yeah.
They're still humans, right? As long as humans are involved, that's always going to be,
Yeah. Well, speaking of. Shall we get into humans being? We're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the FIA decisions that came out this past week. You ask for miracles, I give you the FIA. Send in the car, Grace. So anyway, the FIA released a series of decisions this week. The new president of the FIA announced it was kind of weird because it came out and they said, all right, well, we had a meeting, but we're not going to really release anything until like a day before the testing starts. And then there was a lot of media blowback about that. And then they came out this week and they had these things. So we're going to go through those and we're going to talk about those. So the first thing they came out, they said, and this is their words, not mine. Firstly, to assist the race director in the decision-making process, a virtual race control room will be created. Like the video assistance referee, VAR, in football, it will be positioned in one of the FIA offices as a backup outside the circuit in real-time connection with the FIA F1 race director. It will help to apply the sporting regulations using the most modern technology tools. Grace, it's almost like you work for the government. It's almost like they're going to have a skiff there, It's going to be like, you go in there and that's where they got all the launch codes, it's like they're going to release like, I don't know, like the Herbie Blash bomb, It's going to be amazing in there. You have to leave your mobile phones outside.
Yeah, and the little special lockers.
No static.
Yeah, right. Everybody's grounded,
Yeah, that's the threat. Toto, don't make me get Herbie. I'll get him.
Yeah.
I'll get him.
Am I going to have to go get Herbie Blash?
Is that what you want?
Yeah.
That's what you want.
So, this is an interesting development and one that on the surface to me seems to move in the right direction, if I'm honest. A consistent team of stewards to review on-track action and support the on-prem it's lingo, folks, on-premise. The on-prem stewarding team seems like a good idea. To true up the penalty consistency issues that we, Grace, you and I, and then Paul, we've been saying for years they need a consistent stewarding team. This guest stewarding thing for part-timers and, friends of the FIA, it doesn't cut it. And even when they did we're going to have a former retired driver. Yeah, I don't agree with half those drivers either. We need to have a consistent team. And I'm thinking, well, this might do that. I do have some concerns about the real-time nature of the race. With the NFL, their video system, or play is stopped, right? And they review it. But also the kind of communication that is designed for this process, are team race engineers allowed to communicate with them or just the on-prem stewards? And how does that process, or how does that kind of information get relayed, or does it? Will it speed up or slow down the process, or have no impact on the timing of it at all? Also, who has the authority, ultimate authority? Do the on-prem stewards have ultimate authority, or like the NFL, is the VAR stewards, can they override that? Do they have ultimate authority, or does the race director have ultimate authority, and does he still manage the comms between the teams and these additional stewards, as well as the on-prem stewards, or is it just the on-prem stewards can call in, an assist? How does having these two stewarding groups, work? Does it present more challenges, or is it actually simplifying? I don't know. Those are just my first knee-jerk reactions to this, but what do you guys think?
Well, first of all, I think they should disallow the saying on-prem, because that's just an awkward word.
It is. Well, that's my word, man.
On-site would be good.
On-site, sorry. That's my fault.
Would be good.
I feel burned. I feel
on-prem.
Forget this podcast. I'm canceling the podcast.
Like, I didn't know if it was something you put in your hair to make it curly. I didn't know what that was, but yeah.
10 minutes in.
Very close. On-prem.
So some of those questions obviously haven't been answered, and I'm not sure they'll ever fully open up to how that process goes. Obviously, it always has to funnel to someone's got to have the final say, right?
Yeah.
The interesting thing for me on all this information is that, we haven't really got to the two different race stewards, right?
Top guys. We will. Yeah.
Right. That maybe one of those is dissecting the information and relaying it to the other guy. But right now, from what it looks like, they're going to take turns, which is, we can get to that later. But obviously someone has to make the final decision. If it's out of bounds, something like that, if it could be a whole different committee or group of people than a sporting driver issue about racecraft and who shoved who and who was to blame for an incident. I think those two can actually be completely split apart.
Yeah.
And one can be very analytical, and that's maybe what that room in the FIA in Paris is doing. But you still do need some. There's always going to be a fuzzy line, a gray area with racecraft that really needs to be discussed amongst people that actually understand what it's like behind the wheel and dicing out with somebody else.
Because Paul, I'm thinking if Grace and I had a Formula One team and we knew that the VAR stewards were the ultimate authority, and we had this community, Grace and I'd be over there texting the hell out of him on every single thing. Well, the hell with the on-site guys. I'm going right to the ultimate authorities, right?
Right. But they're not. The FIA have to control that.
Yeah.
I mean, like when in IMSA, there's a one pipeline. We don't even know where or how it gets to Bo.
Or even top. If it does.
Or if it doesn't, yeah. So they've obviously, there's a race notification system. You type in your question. Hey, this guy did this, that did this. Can you please clarify this? You send it out. They do discuss amongst themselves, and then they send you back the answer. And I'm perceiving that this is what it's going to come out to. That it's going to get sent. Then they're going to dissect the good from the bad and the important from the unimportant.
Right. So, Grace, what did you make of it? Is it, good move? Are we finally getting maybe a consistent stewarding team, though, that could, when pressed and when they're engaged in this, at least we feel like maybe we're going to have a consistency in some of those rulings?
Of course, I believe this is a good idea because I think it was like 4 podcasts ago, but this is my Secaucus plan, right?
Yeah.
The only part that's missing is that you need more people because in my plan, what you have is this virtual people, but like, an incident happens, right? So one of the big differences between racing, unlike stick and ball sports, is there's no pause button, right? Yep. Something happens in basketball or football, we stop, we review it, we talk to Secaucus, we make a decision, right? You can't do that in racing. So you're going to need more than just one set because they're going to be busy over here deciding on this thing, and some other thing's going to happen. So this doesn't eliminate this problem,
right?
Unless you have more people on site or in the virtual in Secaucus, right? That are then able to sort out this incident and work on the next incident and work on the next incident, right? So you're going to need more people. But of course, I'd also like to give a shout out to Stefano Domenicali that if he's listening, he should just say so. We'll send him a free shirt. Like he doesn't have to, give us royalties or anything like that. But we'll send him some shirts to wear in the paddock. We have multiple colors, long sleeve, short sleeve, V-neck, whatever he prefers.
Yeah,
whatever.
I found my answers on the Parc Fermé.
Yeah, exactly. I think that would be fine, but of course, I think this is the way it had to go because it's the only way you're going to get enough people at the track, right? Air quotes, to make any decisions is to have people not at the track to help make decisions.
Right, but vice versa, that is, you can't have a GM management system where everyone's deciding by this big committee, so yes, you need enough people to be able to handle it, but you also can't have it be so big, it's so cumbersome that no decision ever gets made. So,
no, that's right.
Yeah.
I guess
car by committee and race by committee is probably not a good idea.
Right.
I think I was having them work in pods, right? So they would still answer to this person, right? But each pod would kind of have its issue, right?
Right. And you got someone there just going, okay, this is an infraction on track limits, this is an infraction on drive, and they send them to the right place.
Right. Just like we do on projects in slow, that's what it is, right? You delegate to, if you're the project manager, you don't do it all yourself. You delegate it to your people, and then whoever else is on your team reports back and you go, okay, this looks good, or no, that's crap. Let's try something different. It's just on a much faster pace than what I would have to do at work. But it's the same idea.
And then if everything kind of gets sideways and everybody gets wrapped around the axle on the thing, they could always reach over and hit the Herbie Blash button. And then Herbie comes in, right?
But you have
Herbie comes out in a spring. Decision made. 10-second penalty.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to formally train people just like you do real referees in other sports, right? Like I know that I never realized how much effort that a football and NFL referee puts into being an NFL referee until they had the strike. And it was and they just pulled in random people to do it. It's a hard job. They spend a lot of time doing that job. You're going to have to get people that this is their job and they spend time doing this job, not I found you on a street corner. Do you want to come do this? That's just not going to cut it. So
see, I have visions of Herbie Blash with that team and a little tripod flip chart, showing, and he's got the long wooden stick with the rubber tip on it, the pointer. And he says he's got a diagram of Schumacher running into Jacques Villeneuve. Okay, is this acceptable or is this a penalty?
Right.
Starts with, okay, Senna Prost. Is this acceptable, Japan 91, or is this a penalty, right? It's that kind of comprehensive training I'm looking for, Grace.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be like little drawings that he made, right? Or
little
felt
drawings
cars or something, right?
Yeah. He's got little, VW Beetle looking cars that he draws,
Right.
It'll be interesting where they draw these people from for each of the different decision-making little pods or whatever. And, are they able to employ them for a whole year and it be a consistent group? I think, as long as the group is big enough where one person can't dominate decisions, keeping a consistent group is the best option.
I think it's good because if the three of us were the three stewards in the VAR, and to Grace's point, if something happened, you could say, okay, well, Paul, run that down. Grace and I can continue watch if there's something else up. But we got confidence that Paul's going to pull up the replays. He's going to come up and he's going to, mete out the right decision. But, you could rotate incidents in that, trying to accomplish that real-time feel of racing without everyone's taking their eye off the ball while Carlos Sainz spearheads somebody, right?
Why you got to pick on Carlos?
I'm not. I'm just saying. Carlos, he's a handsome
hater.
man.
I knew it.
I know. I'm a Ferrari fan. What can I say?
I think if the group at Secaucus isn't consistent, then this still isn't going to work. You have to have consistent, real stewards that are trained, that know what they're doing, not half attempts of we brought in a former driver. Those kind of things are not going to cut it. If you're not going to have the same set of team of referees at every track, again, just like you do with any other sport, it's not like there's 3 referees who do all the basketball games. No, but you have a set of 10 and you rotate between those 10 or whatever.
Right.
There's more than that. But you know what I mean? So
let's hope the VAR team isn't handled the same way the stewards on site are. Here's
more
2
people.
dignitaries from the ADAC, German car club, and they spend a lot of money with the FIA, so they're going to be stewards this week.
Mm-hmm.
Good idea. All right,
let's have them wave the flag, the start flags.
Right. Yeah, let's have them wave a flag, send them to the paddock club. Yeah, good, thanks.
Right.
Moving on. Secondly, and this is back for the FIA. Secondly, direct radio communications during the race currently broadcast live by all TVs will be removed in order to protect the race director from any pressure and allow him to take decisions peacefully. It will still be possible to ask questions to the race director according to a well-defined and non-intrusive process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Never should have been allowed in the first place.
I agree. I'm not sure when that happened. I don't recall
either.
that. I don't remember when that was happening, if Charlie was taking direct calls from Toto.
I mean, all we remember is when they started broadcasting it, technically. You know, we may have heard about it, but it didn't mean much till we heard it in real time and understood the lunacy of the whole engagement, you know?
Right.
The political, you know, elbowing and shouting and screaming and trying to influence the decision and everything. I mean, it's got no place anytime, let alone in a sport where everything, as you guys have pointed out, we're not pausing, you know?
Right.
If you want to pause and have a chat about it and have a little shout match, that's still not good, but it definitely can't happen while things are still ongoing and moving at a very fast pace.
I mean, this may answer some of my previous questions about how the communication will work, right? But is the race director, you know, the race director may still have approved communication with the teams, but ultimately it's the stewards who oversee the race and mete out the penalties, etc. So what prompts a race director or on-site steward to delegate and issue tasks to the VAR stewards? You know, that's kind of that question about how that communicates. I'll be very intrigued to see, you know, to your point, Paul, if they release the kind of how that process works, because I think that would be interesting. I think fans would want to know, you know, what kind of communication, what institutes, whether the VAR team gets involved or not, or, you know, those kind of details will be interesting to know.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think they should ever be any direct to the top of the heap. You know, I think in between races, absolutely, you can have a meeting, discussion, clarify, etc. But in real time in the race, that guy or girl needs to be left alone to make the decisions that they want to make, and then, you know, we can clarify at the end, but that decision needs to be made, you know, unencumbered, you know.
So.
I think there has to be
go ahead, Grace.
Some level of transparency, since this has all arisen because it looks like a sham, right? Like, I think that people, I think what I saw as a longtime fan, there was a part of me that went, are you new to this sport? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we've been complaining about these steward problems for a long time, right? We've been complaining about these, like, I don't know, was some of people's complaints. I was like, well, I don't know. But that doesn't mean it should continue to be that way. So I think you have to have some transparency, or it's just going to look like another sham on top of what people already thought was a sham. Yeah. And it was just that, by me personally, I love those radio communications, but they were never going to last very long because that was way too much information for us to have. And
we couldn't handle it. Fans.
But I think the thing is that if you did continue those conversations, it would be like when they mic coaches, you know, at football games or basketball games. Like, they just say, like, have good defense. That is not coaching, right?
Yeah.
But they know
that in the old days with Hank Stram, that was awesome.
But they know that they're mics, so they just say generic things like, go get them, and that's what will happen, right? Because now they know that we're going to hear those communications eventually, or that possibility is there. So then they're, you know, Jonathan and everybody will just, like, tamp that down so that it's not so, it'll just be like, you know, generic, just like that is. Right. So, but I think that it just revealed what to me was already a known thing. And maybe I didn't know it was quite at that level, but I knew that they would talk to Charlie Whiting all the time. And why would that be any different now?
Yeah. Thirdly, the FIA says the unlapping procedures behind safety car will be reassessed by the F1 Sporting Advisory Committee and presented to the next F1 Commission prior to the start of the season. Now, I did see a story suggesting, it may have been over at the race, that suggested that they were going to solidify that rule via a published or an updated set of regulations on the FIA's website. I think the race went and saw those updated. And I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm just saying, you know, I'm going to reserve sort of commenting on their final decision of how to manage the safety car during a situation like that, when they finally come out and say this, you can write this on a rock because that's what it is.
Right. Let's see what the procedure is before we keep contemplating what it could be.
But I think they have to, because, again, I think at the crux of the last race, what I called a sham, but, you know what I mean, I don't mean that to be partisan, but I think a lot of people were like, oh, this is what's going on here. This doesn't seem right. maybe sham is too strong of a word, but I will continue to use it, is this rule. Is that I think that's the part that really I can understand why Massey made the decision that he made, but you didn't unlap everybody. That's a problem, right? And so I think that this rule has to be clarified, if nothing else. We can't move forward without this being clarified, because that can't happen again.
Right. And then they said, and finally, I would like to inform you that a new race management team will be put in place starting in Barcelona for the first test session. Niels Wittich and Eduardo Freitas, I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right, will act alternatively as race director, assisted by none other than Herbie Blash. Right? As permanent senior advisor. So the Blash is back, and I wonder if he'll be at all the races, or is he part of the VAR team? I think he retired because he'd had enough of the grind. But having a man there who has seen as much as Charlie Whiting is a very good idea and should help manage the difficult moments, I would suspect. And to give you an idea, if you're newer to Formula One, Herbie Blash, who is Herbie Blash, right? Maybe completely new. And so to give you an idea of his pedigree, he's 73 years old, and he's been in racing since he was 17 years old. Think about that. So he's been around and in racing and involved in racing since he was 17. He's 73. He's seen it all. And you can't Google that kind of wisdom. I'm sorry. It'd be nice to, but you can't. I mean, he's seen stuff like, you remember, Paul, when the owner of Brabham got arrested?
Which owner?
He's like a Swiss financier, wasn't he?
Oh, was that Brabham?
Yeah. And he bought the team, and then he got arrested, and they sold the team, and then Herbie came back to the team. Yeah, I mean, he's seen it all, the bizarre everything, right?
Yeah, from the being in a team to behind the mic there as well. Yeah,
absolutely. So he's seen it all. So anyway, they're going to alternate those two roles between Niels and Eduardo. They're bringing Herbie Blash back, and Michael Massey, who accomplished this is their words, accomplished a very challenging job for 3 years as Formula One race director following Charlie Whiting, will be offered a new position within the FIA. So Michael Massey is out. So what do you think?
Ding, ding, ding. And who are you here to see? Hold on. Let me connect you.
Right. Yeah, it's like,
Oh, sorry, Michael.
Yes. Now, that's kind of exciting. The Herbie Blash is back, which means
Shut up and sit down.
Oh yeah, Herbie's back.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we obviously always heard Charlie Whiting, but we didn't really hear a lot from Herbie. We just saw him running around the background, and standing behind him. So, we still don't know what he did for Charlie Whiting, but he was there the whole time, right? And how much influence did he have on decisions? Obviously, Charlie was a very smart guy, but he was never making decisions just solely on his own. That's why the guys were his sidekicks for so long, right? People to bounce stuff off, ideas to discuss, etc. So yeah, he's going to bring the experience that he gained from Charlie, as well as his own experience that he brought as well. So I think time will tell, what influence. It'll be hard for us to know what influence he really has, but it's definitely a good idea rather than a bad idea to have a lot more experience in the booth, right?
Yeah, right.
My biggest question is, they're saying they're acting alternately, right?
Right.
But they're taking turns. Does that mean one's going to be there and one's not going to be there, or one's going to be kind of spearheading at the race and the other person can be at their side, which is how I hope it is, so they can still work together race to race, and that also helps with consistency rather than one having his decision and thought process on something versus the other guy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say, much like among employees, right? Like if you only have 10 staff members, some projects you lead, some projects I lead, but we all work on all the projects, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what you would want.
Right. Exactly. You need both those guys at every race. Whoever's over the microphone making that pivotal decision or communicating that pivotal decision is another thing. But definitely need both of them involved in every race for that consistency. Yeah.
Right.
I was wondering, I don't know. I'm not trying to stir up anything. I was just kind of curious. You got a guy like Herbie Blash who's been there and seen it all. I'm kind of thinking Joe Bauer's been there a long time, has he not?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's seen about every possible way you could cheat in Formula One, you know? And I don't know. They didn't bring him up into the sort of.
Well, I mean, he doesn't have the
director.
personality to be that kind of person. Just,
Maybe he doesn't.
just because
Maybe
you've
he doesn't
seen
wanna-
it doesn't mean, or doesn't want the job.
He doesn't
yeah.
wanna
May not
do
want
it.
the job.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a fun job.
No.
That's why there's not a million of race directors flying around to pick from. I mean, I did it at a very low level, and I did not enjoy it at all.
Yeah.
The only reason I did it was because I thought I could do it better than the other options.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Not
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I wanted to do it, but because I wanted it to be as good as I thought it could be.
Yeah.
And I didn't trust anyone else to do it with the thought pattern that I had. Maybe that's, I don't know if that's ego or whatever, but it was a very minor level. But there's no fun in making decisions because someone's always going to be upset, and
Yep.
the decision process has to be immediate and quick. And it's very easy to just kind of jump on something and be pressured and pushed into making the decision rather than taking 2-3 more seconds to contemplate it. And there really is never a lot of time, but sometimes it's better not to make the rash instant decisions, because give yourself a couple of seconds just to divulge all the information as best you can before you change direction on the race or something like that.
They should have made Grace race director.
Yeah.
I could see
Sure.
that.
I think
Race under pressure.
Yeah.
I would also need the ability to give people technicals, right? Like if you give me too much lip, that's out. Technical, you're out.
It'd been good if Grace, if they'd made her race director and she had yellow and red cards.
Yeah, she would definitely be wearing the stripy shirt
Uh-huh.
for sure.
Yeah.
That's
She could
right.
wear the
And a
stripy
whistle.
shirt.
Proof,
Yeah.
Christian, stop it.
Yep. Yellow card to Toto. All right. Yeah. Red
Too
card,
bad.
Franz Toast. Red card. No. Sit it down.
Do you want a technical? Because you can be out of here. That's what
That's
comes
right.
next.
That's right. You
Yeah.
want to go sit in the car?
Don't make me take your owner's points away. Don't make it come to that. I will
Done
take
it,
your
you
owner's
saw it.
points.
Yeah. Yep.
See, Grace would have been like Bernie, that benevolent dictator role.
Yep.
I'm all in on that.
You
Perfect.
know? Yeah,
Yeah.
Great.
You
great.
saw what happened to Otmar. You don't want that to happen to you.
That's
That's
right.
You
Let
want
that
me to
be a
get
lesson.
you
He
want me
still
to get
can't
you
sit
fired?
down.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
Yeah.
not right.
Don't make me send you over to Alpine. All right.
I just want to be the person, not that makes any decisions, but I want to be the person that has to aggregate all that. What we heard last year, right, over the radio, like a translator. Like Toto gets on and is like, "Oh my God, you guys are a piece of crap. It's Toto on line 2. He'd like to speak to you. He's not very happy right now with what's going on." Meanwhile, he's like slamming the desk, right? Like, I just want to be like the switchboard person that like hooks you to to the right bubble.
Right.
That's
You're
what I
down
want.
there.
Hold on, Christian. Let me connect you.
Yeah. Right. Hold on,
Right.
Toto. Hold on, Toto. Yes.
Oh, sorry,
Oh.
it didn't go through. Sorry.
Yeah, Toto's
I-
calling saying something about no, Michael. I don't know. Would you like to take? Okay, you're out. Okay, I'm sorry, Toto.
I'm sorry.
He's not in.
Jonathan, did I accidentally send you to the Haas garage? I'm sorry, I misdirected that phone
Right.
call. I'll try better next time.
I'm sorry, Jonathan. We don't want a motor race. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
That
Oh
job,
boy.
I
So
want.
let's talk about Michael Massey, as if the world hasn't talked enough about Michael Massey. So Michael Massey's out as race director after a 3-year stint, as I read previously. I do want to talk about this. The first thing I noticed when this came out, and I think it would be good to talk about, is that lots of folks immediately took to social media and websites and editorials and news outlets saying that the FIA's removal of Massey. I mean, look, if that's what happened, I don't know. He may have asked for a different role. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it anymore. But anyway, their removal of Massey, they say, is that the FIA are admitting that the call was a bad call, and that makes Lewis the rightful champion. And if they don't reverse it, they should have an asterisk next to Max's name for eternity, because he didn't really win it, so he's not a worthy champion in that case. And that by canning Massey, that means hands up, mea culpa, we cocked it up, and really Lewis is the champion.
Then we should
Right.
probably go back through every single world championship since the beginning and dissect every single decision or technical infringement that's ever happened and start reshuffling the whole world, basically.
Right.
You know, I mean, sport is sport, right? I mean, Grace, obviously, she watches basketball and these decisions, there's bad calls, good calls.
Yeah.
They carry on, they move on, you know?
That's right.
What one call should not make the difference, you know?
Well, one of my problems with this is you could say, with a lot of legitimacy, that had Massey not called the safety car in early, Lewis would have clearly won it. But with F1, I'm not sure that you can say that with 100% assurance that that's how that would have finished. I don't know. It certainly seemed like it would, had things well in hand, right? But the point here is that the future lap or lap and a half was altered by this call. And we assumed that lap traffic would have moved, out of the way immediately. I don't know. We assumed that it wouldn't. I don't know. There's all kinds of permutations that could have happened. I have no idea if Max still had 3 or 4 cars between him. Would he driven lights out, negating that instantly? I don't know. Possibly not. Can you definitively say that had he not brought that in, that Lewis would have won clearly, right?
Right, because that race never got run, right?
That
Not
race
unless
never
you're-
got run. That's my
right.
point.
Not
That
unless you're-
race never happened.
Unless you're Doctor Strange, we have no way of knowing.
Right. And we're never going to find out because the call happened, and that's how reality unfolded. Right? Much has also been made of the radio conversation between Massey and Jonathan Wheatley when Jonathan said that, you got to move the lap traffic. You don't have to wait for them all to come around. And I don't know if he meant wait for all of the lap traffic to come around Lewis and pass, or if that was post
All of them to catch up. Yeah.
all of them to catch up, which is a difference because that's true. And
That's how I took it.
That's how I took it, is that when he let just the cars between the two leaders go, Jonathan was saying, you don't have to wait for them to get all the way to the tail end.
Right.
Which is true. You don't.
Yeah, no.
And that's happened before. I think some people meant that he was saying you don't have to wait for all of the lap traffic to get by Lewis, right?
Right. No, I think that's a whole different sentence that would have been spoken. So I believe exactly that's what he was saying, was you don't have to wait for them to catch the whole pack up before you restart the race.
Right. And he said at the time, you don't have to wait for them all to catch up, and then we have a motor race. And people suggested that it was collusion, or at the very least, Massey was swayed by Jonathan. But in my mind, does that ignore the numerous other radio conversations all year where Massey told Jonathan to go pound sand, right? It also suggests that Toto's earlier shout fest of not bringing the safety car out also influenced him. And I would argue that Michael is much tougher character than that, right? So earlier I'd saying Toto was saying, no, don't bring out the safety car, right? Yeah. And so did that influence it? If I don't know.
Well, I think technically every single idea was thrown at him.
Yeah, it was.
Don't let them catch up. Let them all pass. Don't let them pass. Restart the race. Stop the race. Every single permutation of what could have happened is basically a top 10 list of things Massey can make a decision on. We're all thrown at him by all three of them, quite honestly. So which one you want to pick, that he was influenced by.
And I think just like with the drivers, these snippets are picked, right? This isn't like, somebody heard that there's a delay. Somebody heard that and went, oh, we need to send that through, just like they do with the driver radio communication. So there is some narrative being built by what you include and what you don't include, right? And so there have been times that when you have the driver say something and then they'll cut to Ant or somebody who's listening to all of the radio communications, they'll go, oh, no, what Carlos was actually saying was this much longer thing, but you only heard this little snippety thing. And this was the larger conversation he was having with the engineers, right? Yeah. And So we lose that. I'm agreeing with you, right? We've lost all context because we've just heard this little snippety thing of this much longer conversation that Massey's been having with way more people than just this one snippet with Jonathan.
Yeah, I feel like, there was that moment, was it Mexico, where Jonathan was trying to, appeal to Michael, and he was like, no, this is, and he basically told him, deal with it. All right, that's the decision.
Yeah.
You're going to deal with it. The other thing, you remember when Toto said, Michael, I emailed you, and he came back and said, Toto, I'm managing a race here. I don't have time to read emails. All right, go pound sand. I'm not interested.
Look at my Amazon's here. Oh, good.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
it's out the window. How did I like my Amazon? Oh, and Toto too. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Oh, my Chewy order's almost here.
My Chewy's
hold on.
orders. Oh, UPS delivered
It's
my
Jonathan.
package. Yeah. I just feel like to say that one conversation completely swayed Jonathan, or Michael. I think Michael's a tougher character than that, right?
Yeah.
And I would
think back to the British Grand Prix, right? When Christian is all over him.
Oh my gosh! Yes.
About this has to be a penalty. This is not right. When Lewis, hit Max and knocked him off the track. I mean, there's lots of situations over the year where there's been a lot of shouting at Michael Massey and a lot of, as you say, strength to his decisions. Whether you believed in the decision or right, it was, I think, he stuck to his decision, and this.
Well, what I will say, Paul, is the one thing I do think he was very influenced and pressured by was the sentiment from all the team bosses in the FI not to end races under a red flag.
Right.
And I think that notion overruled his logic in knowing what would happen if he did pull the safety car in early and what the implication that would have had for Lewis. And whether that was the fairest thing to do, given his knowledge of these cars and the tires. In many ways, he didn't want to end it in red flag. It was a season closing race. Mm-hmm. And I think that overruled kind of what he thought kind of may happen given that Max was on first. I don't think that played into it.
The problem is, because as the race director, you can't play that game of would this be fair to Lewis or would this be fair to Max? You can't go and base your decision on an individual theory of what is better for this guy or not for that person, right?
Right.
You can't make that decision that way. You have to have a bigger picture, and that his bigger picture was, we need to finish under green, and how can I actually make this happen? Not, well, if I make this happen, then Lewis's fans are going to be mad, and Lewis is going to be mad, or Max is not going to have a chance to win the championship. He can't have those influences on that decision making. I think that is absolutely what the only thing he was trying to do was trying to finish on the green. This was the best decision he could think of to make that happen. Whether any of us agree with that was choice number one, no, I don't think anyone agrees that now. But once again, you're under pressure with the biggest race series in the world. With all the eyeballs are watching Formula One nowadays, the pressure is immense to get the race finished under green, and that's ultimately his best decision he can make at that moment in time to get that process done.
Yeah, I kind of feel like in many ways the decision was not the greatest decision, but the constructs in F1 that we've brought into the sport over the years really just exacerbated the decision, giving the silly HD tires and
right.
and
Have a big
DRS
build up to, because everyone wants the last race with the last lap pass, which doesn't always happen, right? The last buzzer throw in basketball doesn't always happen. Sometimes it's a landslide. You can't predict these things. That's why sport's interesting, because you can't predict them, right? But you're absolutely right. They've been funneling these things for instant gratification and a big crescendo, for the final race with two people on equal points racing for the finish line.
And the problem is that he's got fresh tires, and the silly high degradation tires were so far off the cliff for Lewis by that time that it just exacerbated the DRS, the aero wash that the cars are designed that you can't follow. All of these constructs just exacerbated an otherwise poor decision, right? And it was tough. There's a part of me that thinks in the balance and aggregate. There's a part of me that recalls the St. Louis Cardinals versus Kansas City Royals World Series in 1984. Now, St. Louis fans, having lived, I was born and raised in Kansas City, but lived in St. Louis, and I can tell you, St. Louis fans are still livid with Don Denkinger and that bad call. But I lived in Kansas City at the time, and I was thinking, I've said this. then, and I say it now, if the Cards were that much better than the Royals, then they should have just swept them in the series, but they weren't, right? And they left the door open for one bad call to lose the title. And I think if Mercedes was that much better than Red Bull, they should have just walked in with the championship already. But they weren't. The door was still open, right? It was a close run thing, and it was down to a safety car call that lost it. Now, the good news is baseball has VAR, and now F1 will too. But, Paul, you went back and made a spreadsheet, and you went back and looked in all of the races all last year and all of the calls, whether it was an FIA implicated call that had a serious impact that swayed Lewis's way or Max's way, or if it was an on-track move. You went back and looked at all of those, and I'm kind of intrigued. Right. Curious what you kind of found.
Yep. I don't know, Grace, did you want to say something?
Oh, Grace,
no.
were you going to say something?
I know.
You have an opinion on Don Denkinger, don't you?
I do. No, I mean, of course, I was thinking much, other football references, but you gave a baseball reference, but I think it's still appropriate. But I think that it's the same thing that happens on a race by race level, right? If you're Lewis Hamilton, it's not good to qualify mid-pack because that's where the stuff happens, right? So if you don't want to get run over by the Alpines or the Haas's, then qualify better. Mm-hmm. And I think this is on the season. It's that same thing, right? Like, then do better each race because each race leads you to that championship. Don't put yourself in that position.
Right, exactly. I mean, there's so many, as you said, those little what would I call it? I'd just say a spreadsheet, but it's not probably completely, I didn't see every lap of every race to analyze this thing. I kind of saw the snips of each race to kind of get the overall view on, how the races went for each one of these guys and where the luck fell, whether it be an FIA decision, whether it be, circumstance with other competitors, etc. I didn't really get into the fact where someone just, Max beat Lewis or Lewis beat Max because the car and their driver was better that weekend. That kind of doesn't come into play there. That's just the racing scenario. So we'll go through the main points here. So you look back, and it was pretty fun to go back through each race and try to see what a wacky, crazy season this was. And it was entertaining from race one all the way down to the end right there. I mean, literally was the craziest season I've ever seen in F1. I've seen a lot of them. So you go back to Bahrain where Lewis won, Max was second. Max passed Lewis close to the end, but had to give the place back because he went outside track limits to complete the pass on the outside. If you remember that, going into the chicane, the scrutineers, the stewards intervened there. Max was kind of forced to the outside. Lewis was playing hardball, rightfully so. Max kind of got the pass done on the outskirts, so we'll give the 1 point for Lewis getting the tilted ice on that one. We go to Imola, Max versus Lewis. Max wins over Lewis this time. Hamilton stoves it into the barrier, if you remember this one, and loses nearly a lap, if not more than a lap. But then there was an incident with Bottas and Russell. And then they threw the red flag. So it was all catch up for Lewis. He got to put new tires on. He got to fix his car. Everything got to go again. Ended up finishing second when probably if none of that stuff would have happened, he would have been out of the points completely. So give Lewis a bonus point for that one. Portugal, Bottas leads. But once Lewis gets by Max, doesn't fight Lewis too hard, lets him by. Then Bottas fights Max hard and Lewis drives away to the win. So we'll give half a point to Lewis there for a team-aided point. Then going to Monaco, Hamilton qualified 7th when Leclerc crashes in the final minutes, right? If you remember that.
Yeah.
So pretty much nullified qualifying completely. So he can't recover, and it starts at the back, starts in the outside, not in the top 10, but starts 7th, finish 7th. Max wins the race. So we're going to give that to Max. That was a bit of help from him and his buddy Leclerc there. Baku, obviously remember that, the tire incident with Max blows up. Max gets nothing, but fortunately enough for Max, Lewis stoves it into turn 1, pushes the magic button at the wrong time, and makes his own mistake to jump on Max's failure there. So we're going to give Hamilton the 1, even though he didn't get points. He certainly had the ability, because it was his own doing that kind of knocked him out of making the points there.
And produced my favorite quote, which was, well, it wasn't activated when it left here, Lewis.
Right.
So we're going to go Austria. Max dominates. Lewis has damage and has to let Bonus and Lando go by and finishes 4th. So we'll give the tilt to Max there. British Grand Prix, remember that. Lewis goes inside Max. They have contact. Max is in the barriers. Lewis is the hero, even though there's penalties added to him in the race, and wins the race ultimately. A big point bonus for Lewis there. Hungary.
I was going to say, and the phrase, "you never put a wheel in at cops" is now a part of everybody's vernacular.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, I literally, somebody cuts me off in track. Man, you never put a wheel in a cops.
No, what do you think?
No.
What are you doing, buddy?
What do you think?
I wouldn't do that.
Don't we all know that now?
So Hungary, Lewis 2nd, Max 10th, wet start. Bottas hits McLaren. If you remember that, they're coming into turn 1, and Bottas hits basically everybody. That hits all the Red Bulls, knocks Max out. Max has damage. He comes back. He fights with an ill-handling car to 10th, but Lewis gains. So definitely a big bonus point for Lewis there, helped by his teammate Bottas in taking Max out. Spa. We don't really want to discuss Spa, but we're going to give Max
gets
a
a
bonus
point there
by
for
far.
sure.
A very big bonus point for Max. We're going to go down to Russia, Hamilton's 100th. He was struggling to get to that 100th for a while, but it's basically Lando's rainy day blues there as Max starts at the back with an engine penalty, storms through the second. Lewis wins because Lando throws it off the road with an ill-timed miss of the pit lane.
Yeah.
So I'm giving them equal number ones on that one. So that kind of nullifies that one. Turkey, Max 2nd, Lewis 4th. Hamilton gets the engine penalty, starts 10th. Old intermediates. Team calls him for new intermediates. Doesn't help him any. Lewis ends up, questioning the call big time, finishes 4th. We're going to give the tilt the ice there to Max. Brazil, a crazy. Go back and watch that one, because I would say some of them you're like, oh yeah, I remember that little bit and that bit, but everything was happening in Brazil.
Yeah.
Touchgate, Max gets a $50,000 fine for, touching Lewis's car inappropriately. Lewis has to start from the back of the sprint with a DRS infringement, if you remember that. Gets a 5 grid spot also for that, and then Max drives Lewis off the road in defense of lead, but Hamilton gets by and wins after all. So big bonus point for Lewis. A fantastic drive. He went through a lot of adversity that weekend, but came out smelling like roses. We go to Saudi Arabia, another race you probably need to see from start to finish, because I get that Abu Dhabi was kind of crazy there at the end, but Saudi Arabia threw everything at everything, basically. Slow Bottas. Remember, he slowed Max down to give himself the ability to get into the pit without being stopped by, as they double stacked the Mercedes. But then Max decided, well, to hell with this, I'm just going to go around then. And then they throw the red flag. So Max ends up being able to put new tires on and get starting position at the race. Max restart. Max cuts the corner into turn 1, but Ocon gets ahead of Lewis. Also, Massey offers Red Bull the opportunity to restart behind Lewis, which they choose to do, right? And on restart 3 wide, Max ends up in the lead from P3. Remember them 3 wide? Lewis is in the middle, jumped around, more wheel to wheel, driving off course. Then Max gives back the position, super slow-mo contact. Remember that? Them slowing down in that little back straight. Lewis doesn't want to pass. Max is kind of getting out of the way, and all hell breaks loose there. Then Max finally lets Lewis by, only for Max to instantly repass. But Lewis finally gets by, and Max gets a 5-second penalty. He's not able to stay within that realm, so Lewis gets the win again. And then Abu Dhabi, we don't even want to talk about Abu Dhabi ever again.
Max gets the tip there.
You add up the points, it's 6.5 points to Hamilton, 5.5 to Max on who got the rub over the season, and the advantage, whether it's steward influenced or other competitor influenced on the results. So there you go. But it's a lot of words I just said there. But as Grace was talking about before I started this rant, was that the last race is the last race because that's how the calendar worked. But there was you jumble all these races up, and the race finishes in England, let's just say, and it's like, there were so many dramatic things that happened. There were so ebbs and flows. Lewis didn't get the rub in the last race of the year, but he got the rub in a lot of other races. I'm not, no, the decision by Massey wasn't the best decision. It was a decision. It was a decision he could have made. But ultimately, I think, as you were saying as well, Todd, was that the whole season, it's a championship. It's not a single race shootout. And so the whole season brings you to that point where you either put yourself in jeopardy of if anything goes wrong, you don't get the championship, even though you're not getting the rub that day or not. So I think it all evens out, as I've said before. And Massey's made a lot of decisions during the year, and some of them went Lewis's way, some of them went Max's way. Well, the last one didn't go Lewis's way, obviously.
I was just going to say, had Lewis won on Abu Dhabi, I would be saying the same thing to Red Bull now. You had a chance to come back and to beat Mercedes that year, and you got down to Saudi Arabia, and it just got crazy. I mean, you could have a lot of criticism. You got to rein it in. You got to think title at that point, and you let that points championship lead slip away.
Right. Lewis won like the last three. Yeah. He won 3 races on the trot near the end. Yeah. Always keeping himself in the hunt enough.
That's right. And so you basically through either being outdeveloped by Mercedes or whatever it was, you pretty much threw that championship away. You had it in your hand, and through, some errors late in the season, if you're better than Mercedes, you got to go in there convincingly and just beat them, But it was all down to the last race and the last call. I just thought it was an interesting exercise. It's not definitive, and I'm sure everybody would have opinions on who had the gain and who didn't, but I thought it was interesting nonetheless. So, having said all that, that's the FIA's changes. That's what they're going to do. And you won't have to deal with Michael Massey again. So you got that going for you. So
unless you call the FIA, because he's answering the phone now.
Thank you for calling the FIA. This is Michael Massey. Can I direct your call? Yes, Michael. I'd like to talk to the new head of race director.
Jonathan, is that you? I knew it.
I knew it. Jonathan, I got a motor race. Yes. So anyway. Yeah. So I don't know. Look, we talked about it in the podcast, but Michael's a human, man. Let's be human about this. Let's have a little decorum and civility on this. Because, go ahead, Grace.
I just think it's whether or not you agree. I think there are plenty of things where I don't necessarily think that somebody made the same decision that I would have made, but I can understand where they were coming from.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, right? I can see why Michael Massey made the decisions he did. What I don't know if I would have made those decisions or if somebody else would have made those decisions or the right decisions, but
right.
I can clearly follow how we got to this place. It makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so that's all you can ask of a human.
Yeah, that's it. Grace, we released some new cars this week. Which one was your favorite?
Well, I don't think any of them had drivers sitting on tires, did they?
I don't remember seeing drivers on tires.
Was there a virtual driver sitting on a virtual tire?
Oh, that would be the ultimate at this point.
Only if they were like blocky, like they were from Minecraft or something.
So just to clarify, if you're newer to Formula One, so this podcast goes way, way back. And Grace and I, back in the Halcyon days when they had big launch events, right?
Right.
Every single team would release pictures of the car with their 2 drivers sitting on the front tires. Every single year, like clockwork. Yeah. That's the only pictures we get. And finally, Grace and I were like, for crying out loud, could you have them stand next to the car? Why does everyone naturally want to just sit on the front tires? And so it became a joke, right?
And now never do.
Now they don't ever sit on the tires. So now it's something that Grace and we always make a big deal. And look, it's right. tire sitting. So it's great fun for us.
So I think, first of all, Red Bull isn't on your list, right? So they didn't launch a real car. I think that everybody was really, they're a livery only launch. Williams was also a livery launch. And in some ways,
Haas.
Well, were we expecting? We're like Haas has like 4 tires and a nose cone, right? So, but I think the thing is that if you're going to be a livery launch, just say we're a livery launch, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think we expected that or people expected that from Red Bull. But of course, there's also going to be some like, hidden things, or things that are going to be new at Catalunya, or things that are going to be new at the first race, because they're not going to show us everything, and things are going to change. So even if you do show us an actual car, it's not still going to be your actual car. But
lots of
like
red herrings out there too.
Yeah.
of course, you have to, right? And so
Well, that's why I
to me,
tweeted, Grace. I said, how's everybody liking this Photoshop or RevFile or BIMFile car launch this year?
I just love the idea. Like McLaren did all sorts of like little trickerations, like with their wing
Yeah.
configurations and stuff. That I was just like,
Trickerations. That's a cool word.
Yeah. it is.
trickeration. That is either something that George Bush said, or that Saturday Night Live had him saying. Trickeration. Anyway, that's an aside. That W made up his own vocabulary, but
Trickeration.
often the words that you actually know weren't ones that W said. They were ones that
Saturday Night Live made up. Yeah.
yeah, I can't think of. Oh, I can't. That's terrible. The guy who did Elf. Why can't I think of his name? It's
Will
gone.
Ferrell?
Thank you. When it's words that Will Ferrell made up. So either Will Ferrell said trickeration, or W actually did. But that's where that comes from, trickeration. Anyway, sorry, that was longer than needed to be. But anyway, so I just thought that was interesting. And of course, I paid most attention to McLaren's launch. That was the one I was most personally interested in. But I think that's always fun too, to see kind of like the evolution and what we thought was going to happen, but didn't actually happen, because you're right. Those red herrings have to be out there on the vehicles.
I may be the only person, but the AlphaTauri video freaked me out. That was weird.
Lots of staring.
Yeah, I was kind of like, what the hell's going on? What
I was just waiting for Yuki to just start screaming. He's all quiet like this, and then just verbal.
That would be
just
great.
Every
learned
single
this-
swear word in every single language.
I
Coming
just
out.
had like THX 1138 or Robert Duvall. I just had this whole dystopian, like, I don't know, it's like the Apple George Orwell commercial or something. It's just, I don't know, it was just very weird.
Is it Yuki or is he a replicant?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I really liked the Mercedes launch with the kids that were in the racing academy were there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I liked when they asked the questions, because some of the kids were like, oh, George, how's it going? And some of them were like, I'm going to replace you. How are you going to feel when I replace you? Because I'm coming for you. And my favorite was the girl that sat in the front, who was totally like slouched the whole time and was just going to kill somebody. And I'm like, she's going somewhere. She's going to kill all you
Right.
people for making her be here. And then her question is the same. But I thought that was a
Yeah.
a fun change up to have the the Academy kids there for their
Well,
launch.
I may be slightly biased, but I thought the Ferrari looked really good.
I'm
I
surprised.
like the look of that Ferrari. It looked good. And you know what they say, Paul, if it's a beautiful car, it goes fast, right?
It looked fast, right?
Yeah.
Right. No, they say a fast car always looks beautiful.
That's right. A
Right.
fast car looks
Not the other way
beautiful.
around.
Yeah, right,
There's been
right.
some good-looking cars. The
Yeah,
Andrea
that's
Motor
true.
was a good-looking car. It was a horrific car.
Yeah. So is that footwork Honda. Oh. I thought the Aston Martin car looked good. I think the Williams car looked good, I thought.
I think in general, all the cars look
I
better.
think they
I think
do.
obviously,
Yeah.
with,
Yeah.
all the whatever the rules are with the aero simplifying everything.
I think so.
My favorite cars were like in the 89, 90.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
it was a front wing and a rear wing.
Yeah.
And there wasn't
Right.
everything, all these additions, and the cars were just sculpted and beautiful to see, and that they just weren't super busy. And these cars, the rules have brought them down to being a
was
lot less busy.
It was funny, Paul, because I was looking at these cars that they released, like Alpines today and stuff, and that was a nice livery too. I was looking at the cars, and then I was going back, and I was seeing how far I got to go back to where the cars kind of looked like the cars of today, aero-wise, and it's quite a ways back.
Yeah, it's
You
a long
know?
ways back. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
was it? Yeah. I mean, there's been some
yeah,
crazy,
early
crazy
2000s,
aero
mid
stuff.
2000s. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. So anyway, I did like that. Let's do some Albon's Cats. Are you digging this, Paul?
Yeah. I'm picturing a cat puppet banging a
Yeah.
Yeah,
tambourine.
yeah.
A monkey with cymbals?
Maybe a monkey, but it
Oh.
said cats, so I pictured a cat. But maybe I
Yeah.
superimposed
Oh,
a
Albon's
cat
cat,
on
sure.
the
the
monkey's
symbols. Yeah.
body.
Yes, with an accordion. I think a cat with
Yeah.
an accordion. I think you're right.
A
That's
cat
what
with an
works.
accordion would be good. All right. Grace, you got any Albon's Cats for us?
No, but I was just thinking now I feel like this should have been the music used for the Haas launch, right?
Oh, here it is. The brand new Haas F1 car. Yes, isn't she a beauty?
Whose flag is that on your car? Not Russia's.
ROC.
It's Nikita Mazepin. Yes, Nikita. Yes. Okay. Well, I have some of Todd's no shit headlines. You want to hear those?
Okay.
Okay.
Always.
All right. I've got some. Okay, here we go. First one up. Racing driver fined 17,000 pounds for urinating behind post during red flag break.
Well,
So you
That's-
should have urinated in front of the post.
In front of the post. yeah.
Right.
Or in
never,
the car.
never behind the post.
Right. So that's the one I could swear had a picture of your car, but it was a
Really?
Porsche driver. Yeah.
Huh. Which
Yeah.
was the driver?
I can't remember. It was it Asian series, I think?
Oh, really? Asian? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they just had that last weekend. Asian
Yeah.
Mall Series.
Yeah.
it's
it
the
was
one
Asian
without the
series.
urine in the car.
Without
Yeah.
the porta potties
Yeah.
spread around when they red flagged the race to allow the drivers to
Right.
go. Yeah.
I got to go walkies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Just
right.
go in the seat, man. That's all.
Yeah, that's it. Next up, Christian Horner opens up on battling Mercedes' top lawyers while sticky with champagne. Whoa.
Yeah.
Little TMI there. I don't know that I want to know what's going
I
on
don't
between
either.
Christian and the lawyers. We're battling. It's like champagne doused people playing Twister or something. I don't want to know.
Throw the keys in the middle. Let's see what
This
happens.
is starting to sound all very Max Mosley, Grace. I don't need that.
Everybody just dump all their pills in and you'll see what you get.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
right. I don't need that. That's not.
I
good.
don't. This article.
All right. Yeah, that's good.
ugly.
This one, the next one. George Russell has no chance of beating Lewis Hamilton, claims former Mercedes teammate Valtteri Bottas.
That's rich.
Speak for yourself, Valtteri. Yeah. You think? I don't know. That's kind of
Got
harsh.
no chance of being competitive in that car in his first ever time in the car. Oh,
Now I just want him to be competitive. I mean, I was kind of like,
Yeah.
agnostic about how George and Lewis were in their first year together. But now, take that, Valtteri.
Yeah. I mean, Valtteri, once they got that muzzle off that guy, man, he's lit up over there at Alpha Romeo. Crazy.
it's
All
all
right.
hands nowadays too. So
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the next one. The car makes the result. Lewis Hamilton would finish last in F1 in a Haas or Williams, claims Gasly. Oh, Pierre, you can't say that anymore. In the past, when Schumacher was a champion, everyone said this. Everyone said it. When Vettel was a champion, everyone said this about him. Everyone. But you can't say that anymore. See, that's verboten.
bad boy.
Bad boy, Pierre.
Because
You
it's
can't
about
say
Lewis.
that. Mm-hmm. Can't say that. He's not in the best car, Grace. Not in the best car. I got hammered for suggesting the Mercedes had a quicker car last year, although he won like 3 or 4 races on the trot at the end of the season, and they clearly were
Didn't we
dominant.
didn't we just go through a spreadsheet?
We did. Yep. Anyway.
Okay. I
Yep.
don't know. Have
I don't
people
know.
been watching the last 6
Yeah.
years?
Well, I don't know. It's crazy.
I don't know.
Let's see. Next up is this is a good one. You'll like this one. Michael Andretti ready to pay F1's astronomical entry fee to get his own team on the grid, confirms ex-world champ Dad Mario.
And he also said, "Suck it, Ron Dennis."
Yeah, right, right. So there's that.
Michael hires Ron as PR staff.
Something. I just thought,
Well, I
really?
like
so
the
we can
fact
fire him.
I like the fact that they couldn't just say that Michael Andretti files to open a team. They had to go into the editorial, the astronomical entry fee to get his own team on the grid. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Okay. Drama much? Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Let's see. Next up is Lewis Hamilton warned Max Verstappen has point to prove after Michael Massey's F1 sacking and anger of world title win. I don't have any idea what the hell's going on in that headline. I
Is
don't
he gonna
even
go
know what
beat him
that's
up?
saying.
Well, I don't know.
I don't
right?
know. Lewis Hamilton warned Max Verstappen has point to prove after Michael Massey's F1 sacking, anger of world title win.
Those two things
There
aren't
you go.
related. I don't know. It sounds like he's going to go beat up Michael Massey.
I don't know.
Is he? Or is he taking Massey
Or is
to
he
dinner?
Or is he warning
and
Massey
food
that
poisoning
Verstappen's coming
Max
for him?
Verstappen?
I think Massey is warning Lewis Hamilton that Max Verstappen has a point to prove. No,
Oh, yeah, I
Wait.
think you're right. Yeah, that's
I don't know.
I don't know what's going on there.
Let me read it backwards. Win title world of anger and sacking. F1's Massey Michael after proved to point has Verstappen Max warned Hamilton Lewis. That makes more sense.
Yep. It
All
does.
right.
Massey warned both of them.
That's right. And finally, Leclerc says expectations are high at Ferrari as he eyes wins in 2022. No shit. Welcome to the Tifosi. Charles, expectations at Ferrari are high every single year, no matter if they give you a title-winning car or
It's a shit box.
it doesn't matter.
That's right.
All right. Let's do some mailbag.
You've got mail.
All right. Matt asks, hi, guys. Good job keeping it fresh and interesting over the winter. Good interview last week. He's referring to Wayne Sullivan, which was
Yep, very
we had a
good,
lot
very
of fun.
It was good.
Yeah, that was
Good
great. Two-parter. Why is the FIA F1 always so reactionary? With other billion-dollar sports, they have a team of people seemingly in charge, but the Massey situation seems to highlight the fact that almost all changes to F1 are reactionary, and I just feel so sorry for Michael Massey. Even though I think he dropped the ball in Abu Dhabi, personal opinion, any other business, you would look at the system in place and see that the man was substantially less experienced and had less help than his predecessor and make the system change in order to support him, hopefully before some controversy.
Very well put, Matt.
Yep.
I agree wholeheartedly.
I totally agree. And Formula One has always been that way. And if you go back far enough, you think of the Max Mosley, Bernie Eccleston, they kept the regulations very loose on purpose so Max could regulate as they saw fit, and they could make those regulations cover things that weren't anticipated, because it's hard to anticipate every possible permutation, right? But it does come off as being very reactionary. I agree.
I think all sports are reactionary. That's the only. I mean, I agree that F1 is reactionary. I just don't necessarily agree with his earlier premise that other sports aren't also reactionary.
Well, they
I
are.
think, right. So I think in some ways you can never know everything that's going to happen, right?
Right.
As Paul was saying, right? Otherwise, this would not be a sport. It wouldn't be worth watching, right? If
Right.
we knew everything that was going to happen, if we could regulate everything. So I think it's always reactionary, especially when something unexpected happens that is detrimental, or somebody gets hurt or something like that. Then
Yeah,
it's
right.
definitely reactionary, right? But I think
Right.
that humans are reactionary. I think that sports are reactionary. I guess there's probably nothing that somebody with inside that organization doesn't say 700 times, and then it happens, and then somebody goes, "Oh my God, we got to do this thing." Yeah, I've been telling you that. I've been
Yeah.
telling you that for years, that that's a problem, and now you're going to do something about
Yeah,
it.
sure.
Right. Like
And
when
it happens
Senna,
everywhere.
when Senna died, right? I mean,
Right.
the
Mhm.
reaction was massive,
Yep.
and there's
Huge.
been people harping about it for a long time, but
Yeah.
there was nothing to focus on to make those changes actually be sped up, and that's ultimately what
Yeah.
happened
Mhm.
after that event. And yeah, we've all been frustrated by how slowly and without forethought F1 are, and they're all so self-involved with their own
Yeah.
opinions and needs and wants that they don't see the big picture of what would actually be best for the sport, because everyone's got to have a say, so everyone uses their say as leverage to get something they want as a professional advantage in their team. So
Right.
so I think this is a step forward in separating that process, hopefully.
Yeah.
Right? But we have been frustrated by passing committees and safety committees and all kinds of, and the decisions they make and the decisions they never make.
Yeah.
Right, and take
Right.
forever to not make a decision. That it's good to have something like, I mean, it was a bad thing to happen, but I think in the end something good is going to happen from this, because it was broken for a very long time. It was obvious it's broken, but for a sport that moves forward with technology and everything so quickly and just spearheads a lot of things like that, it moves so slowly in a lot of other ways.
It does. But I will say that when they do put their mind to it, they tend to get it right. You think of the safety measures that came in after Senna; those were huge, right?
Yeah.
You think of the safety measures that came in after Jules Bianchi, right? Different things that they've ushered in. The Halo device is one I think of. But anyway,
I think you're right. I think it's the focusing. I think that's what we see as reactionary. I think, Paul, I think that's a very good way of putting it. That it's not these things get parking. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure everybody's like, here are the 10 things that I'd like to fix about whatever is at my job. But when something like that happens, that then gets moved to the top of the list. It changes that focus.
right.
But it's not that nobody ever thought these things were a problem. People did.
Right. Matt's other question was really about sent around, and we kind of already talked about it. It's sent around these guest stewards, where they're bringing in these dignitaries from motoring clubs and stuff like that, and there's no consistency. And I hope, Matt, that we kind of answered that earlier in the show, where we agree with you. Having sort of guest stewards come in because they belong to a motoring club and in Sri Lanka, and they're wonderful people, and I'm sure they are, but race stewards, I don't know. And having that consistency, and hopefully the FIA will fix that. And to Paul's point, maybe it takes something like this in order to cure what we've all been grousing about all these years about consistency and regulation consistency and meting out the appropriate penalties and those kind of things. And maybe it takes something like this. So anyway, good question. Finally, Brandon asked, not a question, but a request. Grace, please give us your your review of Lawrence Stroll's performance during the Aston Martin Aramco Cognizant AMR 22 racing car reveal.
I do love me some Larry, let me tell you. I think that is.
Do you now?
Well, so I've often said that I think Christian Horner, like, he leans into being the bad guy. Like, that's his narrative. He likes playing that role. I don't think Christian Horner, like, if you just like were having dinner with him or something, is really that guy. I think he likes being that guy. That's his narrative. He likes it. Larry is exactly who he is. I'm pretty sure. I don't think there's any narrative going on there. I don't think there's any leaning into it. He is that guy all the time, and not my favorite guy. So I just think I could not work for somebody like that. I find him very off-putting and a bit egotistical, but I guess.
So on
we'll
a
see.
level of counting A, B, C, D, E, F as a fail, his performance was a
F. He also can't read. I also think that's all. Like, people need to learn how to use a teleprompter. Like, I get it. You're reading, but even at that, like, Todd has notes. We all look at each other's notes, but Todd doesn't go, "Hey guys, good job keeping it fresh and interesting over the right." He's not reading it. He is having a conversation.
Rives above it.
How do you get that money?
Well, it wasn't from his public appearance, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So
it was for me. It was the first season of Drive Survive, and he was sitting on a couch opposite a couch with Claire Williams on it, and it was a very small space. And they got done with their meeting. He stands up, and his crotch is like right there in her face, and he sticks his hand down his pants and adjusts his junk right in front. I thought, dude, how uncouth. That is just so
that's like
rude.
the nicest way of putting it.
It was like, dude, I mean, what? Where did you come from? You would do that to Claire? Come on.
Claire is also a better person than I am as well.
Oh yeah. If I was Claire, I would have body slammed him right there. Yeah.
A little newspaper. Dink.
Think.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So anyway, there you go, Brandon. That's Claire's review. She took the high road. It's the road less traveled, and that's why I like
a better
Grace.
person than I am. That's what we learned here.
Yeah. Yes. Paul, I'm not going to get your opinion on it.
No, best not.
I think best not. You just stay out of this, Tiger.
He also did note about Vettel's Red Bull haircut.
He did.
I can chime in on that, and I love the Shaggy.
That's the first thing I thought of. Yeah. I saw him, and then I thought, well, that's Shaggy. That's Scooby-Doo. That's Shaggy. So I posted
last year
a
wasn't he
picture of
bald, and now this year he's Shaggy. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here.
Like zoink, Scoob. Yeah.
He's been seeing Gasly's guy apparently.
Yeah. Gasly's hair is out of control.
Yeah. So I thought, but yeah, that was distracting as well. Like half the conversation was like, what's going on with Vettel's hair? Oh, wait, that's not the point of this at all, right?
Right.
Paying attention to the car.
Right.
Yeah.
So
funny.
There's something called hair gel. It kind of brings it all together into one cognitive, idea. rather
hair
than
area.
Why
fluff.
can't he be more like Lance? You know,
Nobody has that hair.
he's got like an SOS pad. I mean, it's like Brilla pad. You know,
Because I think of that one picture where I thought he was wearing a hat in Russia, and that was his hair.
I
That's
know.
crazy.
You're talking about thick hair, man.
That's some.
He
thick
must spend
hair.
a fortune on haircuts, Lance. I bet he's got super thick hair. I bet it grows fast.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
He's fast. Everything Lance does is fast.
yes.
Everything.
All right, but
Well,
Carlos Sainz by far
I
has
don't
the
know
best
that.
hair. So
Carlos Sainz, yes, my daughter loves Carlos Sainz. She's quite smitten with Carlos and Charles. It must be
yeah,
said. So.
he also has good hair. I think.
No,
You know, but yeah, Lance definitely has like the densest hair. I don't know what that
Yeah.
gets you, but
right.
he could lend some to Vettel.
All right. Hey, if you liked our TPF Story podcast, I just released a new one called British Steel, and be sure to check that out. I really enjoy making those, and I hope you guys enjoy listening to them. They're not very long, like 12, 15 minutes, something like that. So check those out. If you like this podcast, go over to iTunes, give us a good rating over there. And a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters, because we could not and would not do this podcast without you. Paul, it is awesome to have you on with Grace
you.
and have the three
Always
amigos
good.
together. We are drumming up a idea. I'm not going to tell everyone what it is, but we were hooting at the beginning of this. We thought this would be fun. Now, I don't know if it'll be next week. I got to figure out what Paul's schedule is.
I don't think Paul hoots. Do you hoot,
No.
Paul? I don't
I'm
know.
not generally not a hooter.
Not
But
a
he does
hooter.
haw. He doesn't.
Yes.
He,
I mean,
He does-
I hum.
yeah.
Mm.
But we thought it would be a lot of fun, so we may pull that off in this off season if we can, because
If not, we'll
I
just
think
put
it'll
it
be
in.
hilarious.
Put it in
We'll
instead
throw
of
it in.
France, or
Yeah,
Right.
the Paul
So
Ricard
cheap.
Right,
podcast.
Paul Ricard, yeah.
In replace
Right.
of the Paul Ricard podcast, we've brought you something that's entirely more interesting.
Yeah, it's more
Correct.
interesting. Right, right.
We'll just,
So-
that's fine. We'll just plop it in somewhere else.
Right.
It's fine.
So our conversation with Wayne Sullivan got us really worked up on the topic. So
Yeah.
we have some ideas. So we'll see if I can get the three amigos back together, and we'll do this again. But until that time, this is Todd, aka Negative Camber, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.